Well, this story is going to be difficult to talk about. Nothing about this is going to be easy because, well, we have to talk about the migrant crisis here in America. Now, to be clear here, why is there a migrant crisis at the border? It's because of previous Democratic and Republican presidential administrations' policies for the war on drugs, coups, regime change, wars, sanctions, causing a lot of political instability. And because of this, Democrats and Republicans love to play pawns, use us as little pieces on their game board. Uh, of us going after each other, going after migrants, going after poor people, going after each other because of this and that. All the while, they're dancing and drinking because they have us fighting against each other. And because Democrats, especially in sanctuary cities, did a terrible job, and they did do a terrible job in regards to dealing with the migrant shelters, migrant crisis, as well as also enraging their citizens. Looking at you, Mayor Brandon Johnson of Chicago. I mean, I've never seen City Hall get filled up with so many people enraged. And listen, folks, there's a lot of people upset. Okay. And the thing is, we have to remember that there were a lot of activists and organizers and groups that wanted this to happen, but yet there was no plan for these people. And the one thing I don't want to see is men, women, and children getting hurt. Getting hurt. I don't want to see that. And because of this lack of action, we are now seeing the Trump administration go full force, rounding up criminals, migrants. So ICE is working double time. So Tom Homan, who's Trump's border czar, he made a promise he was going to start right away, and he is. And most notably, this video has been going viral, where one guy in particular says, "I'm not going back to Haiti. F Trump and F Biden."
I'm not going back to Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
Obama didn't do anything for anybody. Neither did Biden. They didn't do jack for anybody.
ICE Boston quickly takes down its next targets, including this illegal alien from Brazil who has an Interpol red notice for armed robbery. This Salvadoran illegal alien charged locally with rape and released by a sanctuary jurisdiction.
Yo, ¿cómo se llama?
And this Dominican illegal alien charged with assault with a deadly weapon and heroin trafficking. Officers also arrested this Guatemalan MS-13 gang member facing gun charges. ICE says he was released from local custody just the day before. Their detainer request was ignored because of sanctuary policies. And in a sign of shifting priorities with the new Trump administration, this man, who was in the same apartment as the target, was also arrested after ICE determined he's also in the U.S. illegally. This is what ICE calls collateral.
So you guys got your main target just now, but you got somebody else. What just happened?
So our main target was released by a sanctuary jurisdiction, not honoring a detainer. That person was released back in his
Grape and Tyne, absolutely correct. The CIA is the biggest funders of the drug war and the cartels. Hello. Yeah, exactly.
communities. And when we went to go find him, he's with somebody else who was previously removed from the United States. So he's going to go today too.
And that is exactly what border czar Tom Homan has warned would happen.
When we find the bad guy, he's probably with others that are in the United States illegally. They may not be a criminal priority, but we're not walking away from them.
ICE Boston says they will continue to go into sanctuary jurisdictions and do their job.
Today was a good day. Today we took several significant public safety threats out of our communities. Unfortunately, a lot were released by sanctuary policies, but we're here to tell the Commonwealth and the rest of the country that we're going to find them whether they're released or not.
And guys, shortly after we finished filming, ICE Boston told us they arrested 2 more targets in other parts of town away from our cameras. One of those targets is a previously deported Honduran illegal alien who was arrested for raping a woman while putting a gun in her mouth. The other target they got is a Haitian man who first flew into the United States in 2023 as part of President Biden's controversial migrant flights mass parole program. Well, they just picked him up yesterday because he's been arrested locally for sexual assault. We'll send it back to you.
Bill Illusion, it was fascinating to watch.
Now, the thing is, one thing to take away from this is for the Democrats, especially for the Biden-Harris administration, was there anybody paying attention? I mean, seriously, like, my goodness. Was there anybody paying attention? Because we were asking these questions about the sanctuary cities. Okay. We were asking about way back when people were doing their parades, protests in front of Trump Tower here in Chicago. It's like, hey, is there going to be a process to really also find out between, who wants to come here and be a productive citizen and who might be a bad person? These are things that need to be asked. Oh boy, were we given a raised eyebrow and a stinky face and then being called secret Trump supporters? Like, no, we're asking this question because, hey, if this entire policy turns out to be people are just there twiddling their thumbs and not really, doing their jobs, a lot of people are going to get hurt. There's going to be a lot of instability. And there's going to be a lot of residents, especially in the sanctuary cities, they'll be very vocal and very angry. Case in point, what was happening here in Chicago in late 2023 and throughout all of 2024, especially towards all the rage towards Brandon Johnson and his administration. And folks, we've had good friend of the show, Jamal Green on our program, where he talked about the horrific situation that many migrants were living in these shelters. Plus, we did a story not too long ago in 2024 in regards to a shelter being put up in a South Side neighborhood. And the residents were, number one, very angry about it because no one told them that it was going to be built. And number two, they're saying the location in which you're going to build that shelter is a toxic site and people will get sick and die. No plan. There was no plan. There was no plan. All it was feel-good points. All it was for people to feel good about themselves because they were being anti-Trump and trying to make themselves look better against Trump. But I think Trump cares about that? No, he doesn't. And he's following through with his promise. And the thing is now, a lot of questions need to be looked into, or a lot of questions need to be asked about the overall policy that many of these sanctuary cities were doing in regards to migrants, who was keeping an eye on the people. Because there's a whole list being made, and ICE is in full force. Let's continue on.
Watch all of that. I think I was just saying to Bill, this is terrible for Joe Biden and the legacy that he tried to leave behind. A question from me. How soon will they actually be leaving the country? Does that take a long time?
I know it's off topic, but listen, this is why I love my audience. A little bit of humor in here. Mastermind hour. Whenever I tell a joke about free healthcare, Americans just don't get it. But Mastermind, get up and go see the White House counselor and tell her what you just said.
It depends what country they're from. If they're from cooperable countries like El Salvador, Guatemala, countries like that, it can be quick. It can be within days or weeks. If it's countries that are harder to deport, countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. as much, it can go into a process of months. But the Trump administration is changing policies with something called expedited removal. The bottom line is people at home don't need to understand all the policies. The Trump administration is just going to work as fast as they can to get all the people you just saw on camera there out of the country as fast as possible. They're also going to use their State Department, now led by Marco Rubio, to put pressure on countries that don't cooperate with the U.S. as much when it comes to those deportations.
Bill, just two points of clarification here. It seems a lot of these crimes are associated with sex crimes. I'm just looking at the list a bit earlier today. I don't know if that generally is the case or not. And second,
and you better believe that the media is going to be running on this. But also, the thing is, folks, 4 years, the Biden-Harris administration was running this. Who was in charge? Who was keeping an eye on everything? And how much of was there a lack of management? And the thing is, knowing that the Biden-Harris administration did things terribly because, hey, folks, remember how everybody was saying, hang on, kids in cages, we're going to get you out, and nothing happened? Nothing did happen. Nothing happened. Those kids were still in cages. And by the way, we do want to talk about, again, human trafficking, because that's a dangerous thing that was happening here under a Democrat president. There's a lot of questions. So vote blue no matter who. I get it. You guys are still traumatized with what happened on November 5th. But, you guys are going to need a massive amount of therapy once more is looked into how the Biden-Harris administration was handling the border, as well as other policies. Because I will just say this right now in 3, 2, 1. Biden and his entire administration didn't give a damn about the migrants. Okay? Now you know, and knowing's half the battle.
If Boston's a sanctuary city, how are they allowed to do this? Because we told there would be resistance.
Boston doesn't have to cooperate with ICE, but there's nothing they can do to stop ICE from coming into their city and enforcing the law. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. And that's the point ICE makes to us is, look, they don't have to cooperate with our detainer requests. They don't have to tell our officers when they're releasing somebody from jail. But we're going to do our job. We have our intel guys out in the field. We have people with eyes all over the place, and we're going to snatch those guys. So they can make ICE's job more difficult, longer, and more dangerous, but it's not going to stop ICE from doing the job, guys. The bottom line is ICE says it's safer for everybody involved if locals would just hand these guys over in jail once they're arrested, but they don't. They let them out onto the streets. They don't tell ICE about it. So ICE has to spend a lot of resources gathering intel, finding these guys, and then going out into the community to do arrests, which could be dangerous. You saw that combative Haitian man. And then you saw in the case of that one MS-13 member, his friend got snagged. They weren't even looking for him. They were looking for the MS-13 guy. They picked him up because a sanctuary jurisdiction released the MS-13 guy. ICE found him and then found the guy he was in the apartment with. They found out he was an illegal alien as well. So now he's going to be deported too.
Wow.
Amazing. Bill Maloogian, thank you so much. More to
Yes,
come on
underway.
that.
Thank you, Bill.
Now, I want to pull up something here too, because look, at the end of the day, the Biden-Harris administration did fail their job. And the thing is, there is fear for good people, good migrants who are coming here, who are trying to start a life, trying to escape the war zones controlled by the cartels or tyrants or dictators or political or economic instability, okay? And the thing is, I just want to pull this up here. There's an article from Black Club Chicago. 5 things to know about Illinois and Chicago policies to protect migrant students. And I want to pull this up here, okay? Because they have a story too. Migrant students and families are bracing for the unknown under President Donald Trump, who has promised the nation's largest deportation operation with Chicago as a target. And knowing full well how not only Lightfoot, but even Mayor Brandon Johnson, and by proxy, I know we got a couple other viewers from the Chicagoland area who watch our show. There's a whole treasure trove of Democrats coming here, making this a bastion. Chicago is going to be a war zone in more ways than one that it hasn't been already. But in Chicago, a so-called sanctuary city, both city and school officials have stressed that they will protect families of varying immigration statuses and will only cooperate with immigration customs enforcement officials or ICE agents if they have a judicial warrant, which, knowing what happened in Boston and knowing our city's mayor, Mayor Brandon Johnson here in Chicago, I don't think his administration is going to stand up too much to this. Chicago Public Schools does not ask for a track student's immigration status, and the previous school board approved a resolution reaffirming the district's intention to protect immigrant students. Still, families who are not legal residents are fearful of what the new president administration means for their future in Chicago and the United States. CPS CEO Pedro Martinez told Chalk Beach Chicago that he believes schools are the safest spaces for children. Horrible choice of words there, okay? Because it's... Have you not been paying attention in regards to school safety here in America? Okay, anyways. So here's a couple of things here, especially for my viewing audience here in Chicago, and also what's going to be happening to a lot of people. Because the thing is, knowing Trump and his administration, he has a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And because of this, we have to remember the reason why that hammer exists is because of the failure of the Biden-Harris administration and the failure of people trying to look better against Trump, who never had a plan to really protect people in the first place, because the whole idea of the sanctuary cities was a bad idea in the first place because, again, there was no plan. There was no plan. There was no plan. It's been nothing but failure. So, do I have to share my share my or my child's immigration status with my child's school? No. Chicago Public Schools does not ask families for immigration status and does not share student records with ICE officials unless agents have a court order or consent from the child's parent or guardian, according to CPS. So, there we go. Can ICE agents enter school buildings? Yes, but the bar is high. ICE agents have to provide their credentials, a reason for entry, a criminal judicial warrant signed by a federal judge in accordance with Chicago's Welcome City Ordinance and school board policy. Chicago Public Schools says ICE agents cannot enter a school with an administrative warrant, ICE detainer, or a document from another agency enforcing civil immigration law. you better believe Tom Homan's going to do everything he can to really challenge Chicago, because if there's one thing Trump wants to do, he wants to embarrass the Chicago Democratic machine, which, mind you, it is the weakest it has ever been. There was a movement last summer calling for the recall of Mayor Brandon Johnson. There was also the abysmal DNC convention here in Chicago. Listen, I love giving my analysis and perspective and point of view here. But it's quite clear that if there's ever an open time to take on the Democrat machine, especially when it's at its weakest, the Trump administration would be stupid not to do so. And you better believe, after what they've done in Boston and a few other areas, that they will follow through on that. If a parent is taken into custody by ICE agents, what can schools do to support the students? And this right here saddens me, because, again, you can have kids that might be on their own and their families could be deported. Brilliant job, Biden and Harris. This is your legacy. Martinez said the district is working with nonprofit organizations that work with schools to create family plans and families who might be worried about what to do if they are detained during a school day. The district can't ask families for immigration information, so the district is leaning on help from community organizations. Oh, that's not going to help. That already worked with and have built trust with school communities to create an extended list of relatives or guardians who can help if a parent is detained by ICE. That is, I already see that being a failure. Oh, because what if they are on their own and they have no extended family? What happens then to that kid? There was no plan. There was no plan. 4 years, there was no plan. Hell, the 4 years even under Trump, 8 years altogether. No plan, no plan, no plan. What protections are there for teachers and school staff who are immigrants? CPS employees are legally eligible to work in the United States, said Ben Felton, Chief Talent Officer for Chicago Public Schools. That being said, Felton stressed that the district would not disclose any sensitive personal information without a valid legal request, such as subpoena, he said. We're fiercely protective of our employees' rights, Felton said. He also reiterated that the staff had been trained on what to do if ICE agents show up to a school, including not allowing them inside without a judicial warrant. This is going to be a disaster. Are there resources at school to help inform parents about their rights? Chicago schools have listed Know Your Rights forums hosted by local community and advocacy organizations on its website. What if they don't have the internet at their house? And information about the district policies. The district has also trained teachers and staff on how they should interact with ICE agents, how to deal with ICE agents, and what to do if a child, parent, or legal guardian is arrested by ICE agents while a child is at school, as well as on students' and parents' rights. Martinez added that the district is making sure teachers and counselors know to create a space for children who just need to talk about it. This is I already see holes in the ship's frame. I already see how bad this is going to get. This is going to be heartbreaking to watch. And it's going to play out in real time in my city. Because you had people wanting to get those feel-good points, that gold star of, oh, you're better than Trump. Promises were made and they were never kept. I do want to pull up something here too, because there's going to be a split in the Democrat Party. So if anybody is hoping that the Democrats are going to go to bat for you, no, it's not. No, they're not. No, they're not. They lost bad. Shout out to Case Study QB.
It is a rare moment of unity, especially when we've seen how divergent these viewpoints can be. But then there's also starting to be some schisms on the Democratic side of the aisle on this between moderates and progressives. You've been doing a lot of reporting on this. Talk to me about what you're learning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing these splits very clear. I think the Democratic Party is struggling to see who they should actually look to in terms of leadership now that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have now left office. So Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has a really tall ask in terms of how to message on this issue that's divided Democrats for a long time, especially related.
I also want to point out here too, Topher 1010. Look, there's a lot of people right now suffering. You got the people in LA County and also the people in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, that are still suffering from those hurricanes. So while, again, yes, Trump is visiting that area that was hit by the hurricanes, U.S. citizens need help here too, okay? And notice they're trying to distract you with a couple of things here. We got the JFK, RFK, MLK files being released, which on the one hand is good, but what are they distracting you with? And second hand, too, then you got the ICE agents acting in force. But what about the American people? You got fires in California. And then, of course, you got people still suffering from the hurricanes of last year. Just want to throw that out there.
Related to these vulnerable ones that have to stick to their message of border security versus the progressive wing that wants to really go hard against Trump, what Trump's doing here.
I think so much of this, when we talk about the progressive and moderate split, and I've been having conversations with my sources about this too, is do you let the perfect get in the way of the potentially good, especially as some of these more moderate members are saying, look, if Republicans want to take action on the border, let's find some places that we can work with them. I mean, that's a very central debate right now within the Congressional Hispanic Caucus too, right?
Yeah, definitely. The Hispanic Caucus had a whole leadership yesterday with meeting with leadership, I should say, and it was very interesting to see that now the current chair, Adriana Espaillat, wants to move to the middle in terms of messaging. But obviously, there's progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, for example, a New York Democrat, who says that the party CHC, the Hispanic Caucus, should actually uplift members, help them sell that message back home instead of them breaking with the party every time.
Yeah, and not put frontliners, I believe, for her words, according to my sources, in the position of having to break away from the party on votes like the Lake and Riley Act, not wanting them to be put in those kinds of positions.
So, what can we take away from this? Especially now that the progressives, the independents, are now all being called out. And I think we need to remember all these politicians only did this because it was something that got them a lot of views and clicks and, I guess, a endorphin boost on social media. But the real truth is that the Biden-Harris administration failed to hold any real accountability. The leadership and people running the border weren't keeping an eye out for the bad guys. But also now, too, you've got families who are trying to start their lives over who are now very fearful of what can happen. And the thing is, knowing how our infrastructure works here in this country, especially at the state, city, county, and including even the federal level, here in Chicago, a kid's family, who comes from a migrant family, they could be arrested and they might not even know about it. I mean, it's one thing to write it all down in a newspaper article or in a story online. But see, the thing is, I don't think there's going to be a plan. And it will be heartbreaking to watch, especially seeing good people suffer. But all in all, just remember who did this. It was the politicians that did this. And this is how they view us all. Pieces on their little board game.